7 prominent public figures have, in ways both subtle and unmistakable, retreated from the public eye. This is not a short break. It is not a carefully curated pause. This is a deliberate, almost surgical withdrawal from visibility, a retreat that signals both the weight of public scrutiny and the consequences of association. Their names have emerged repeatedly in the newly released Jeffrey Epstein documents, some appearing over 1,700 times. For some, the implications were career-ending. One individual was permanently banned from a professional association that had long defined his life's work, effectively erasing decades of prestige and influence. For another, the consequences were intensely personal. Stripped of royal titles and privileges by his own mother, the reigning monarch, a symbolic act of both shame and repudiation. In every case, the fallout revealed that power, fame, and position offered little protection against the shadow cast by Epstein's crimes. The release of millions of pages of investigative material has reignited global attention, elevating what might have been a passing news cycle into an enduring story about exploitation, influence, and complicity. The archive, documents, emails, photographs, and flight logs, maps a sprawling network of individuals who orbited Epstein, voluntarily or otherwise, in a world tainted by abuse. Epstein, arrested before ever facing trial, died under mysterious circumstances in custody, while his longtime associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, was later convicted for recruiting and facilitating victims. Yet the human toll continues. Survivors are now speaking out publicly, recounting experiences that had long been silenced, forcing society to confront not only Epstein's crimes, but also the enabling structures and social networks that allowed him to operate for years without accountability. Among the revelations, one former Duchess reportedly fled the United Kingdom, drawn back into public scrutiny by newly released emails exposing her connections to Epstein long after his 2008 conviction for soliciting a minor. The messages, made public by the U.S. Department of Justice, reveal sustained contact and a familiarity that shocked many observers, underscoring how deeply Epstein's network penetrated elite social circles. And every week, more information emerges. Additional names, new connections, and layers of complicity previously unknown to the public. These individuals are not obscure or faceless. They are leaders, philanthropists, celebrities, and former heads of state, figures recognized by millions and entrusted with influence. Their involvement, whether direct or indirect, underscores the insidious reach of Epstein's operations and the enduring consequences for those who chose to maintain associations despite the risk. The documents also highlight patterns of privilege and protection. Many individuals continued to socialize with Epstein despite knowing his criminal history, attending gatherings, flights, and private events that positioned them at the center of a moral and legal storm. Some sought personal or professional gain. Others appear to have been naively unaware of the full scope of his crimes. Yet, the evidence now suggests that ignorance may not absolve them. The images, emails, and flight logs form an irrefutable paper trail that has already forced some to step back from careers, relinquish titles, and confront the long-term consequences of their decisions. In all of this, the human element is undeniable. Survivors' voices are emerging with renewed strength, demanding accountability not only from Epstein and Maxwell, but from the wider circle that facilitated his behavior. Every revelation is a reminder that actions, even those carried out in elite privacy, carry consequences that extend far beyond immediate perception. It is a sobering illustration of how proximity to power and influence can lead to moral compromise, and how history has a way of uncovering what many hoped would remain hidden. As these documents continue to be released, they serve as both a warning and a reckoning, exposing the intersections of wealth, privilege, and wrongdoing, and reminding the world that no one, regardless of status, can entirely escape the consequences of association with crimes of this magnitude. When questioned under oath about social interactions with Donald Trump and the presence of underage girls, one witness invoked constitutional rights and declined to answer. The exchange, though brief, was deeply telling. It revealed the uneasy intersection of wealth, power, and secrecy that characterized Epstein's social network, a world in which the influential moved freely, shielded by privilege, reputation, and carefully maintained silence. These moments of reticence under oath are not mere legal maneuvers. They hint at the pressures and stakes surrounding those ensnared in the orbit of Epstein's operations, where complicity often disguised itself as loyalty and proximity to P. Or could blur the lines of accountability. For the survivors, the stakes were never abstract. Their struggle is rooted in trauma, not in political posturing or media spectacle. Women who endured Epstein's abuse describe the painful solidarity forged through confronting a shared predator, a bond born from suffering and survival. Their stories have reshaped the narrative, shifting the focus from names and titles to the very real human toll inflicted by exploitation. Beyond courtrooms and headlines, these women's lives bear scars, emotional, psychological, and social, that no amount of legal documentation can fully capture. The courage to speak publicly transforms the narrative from one of hidden privilege to one of reckoning, ensuring that the stories of victims cannot be buried alongside the secrets of the powerful. The newly released files are unprecedented in scale. Millions of pages, accompanied by nearly 180,000 images, trace a meticulous web of correspondence, travel itineraries, and social interactions. They document who met whom, where, and when, providing a stark and detailed map of a network built on manipulation and influence. Perhaps most chilling is the revelation that many individuals maintained contact with Epstein long after his 2008 conviction, a detail that continues to fuel outrage and demands for accountability. These files do more than chronicle events. They expose a systematic pattern in which proximity to wealth and status allowed wrongdoing to persist, even in the face of legal consequences. Among the figures most thrust into the glare of public scrutiny, Prince Andrew's trajectory is particularly dramatic. Once regarded as the late Queen's favored son, he gradually became a figure of isolation and controversy as his connections to Epstein and Maxwell emerged. Public records and photographs show him socializing with Epstein over many years, including visits to his residences in New York and Florida. In 2010, 2 years after Epstein's conviction, he was captured walking through Central Park with Epstein, a striking visual that underscored the audacity of such connections. A royal prince, emblematic of centuries of tradition, casually accompanying a convicted sex offender. The situation escalated further when Virginia Giuffre came forward, alleging she had been trafficked to Andrew at age 17. While he has denied these allegations, public scrutiny intensified, and his attempts at clarification often backfired. In a 2019 BBC interview, intended to clear his name, his explanations, citing a visit to a Pizza Express as an alibi and claiming a medical condition that prevented him from sweating, were widely criticized and ridiculed. The interview magnified public perception of evasiveness and detachment from the severity of the allegations. Combined with documented interactions and survivor testimony, these revelations have indelibly marked both his reputation and the broader conversation about accountability among the elite. But Prince Andrew is not an isolated example. Epstein's network spanned continents, intersecting with political leaders, philanthropists, celebrities, and financiers. Many high-profile figures, long considered untouchable, were revealed in travel logs, emails, and photographs, exposing the reach and audacity of Epstein's influence. Names that once conjured admiration or respect are now intertwined with a web of exploitation, secrecy, and moral compromise. Each new disclosure prompts not only shock, but also a deeper reckoning with how systems of wealth and privilege can shield wrongdoing and perpetuate abuse. The human cost, however, remains the central focus. For survivors, justice is a continuum, not a single moment in court or a fleeting headline. For society, the revelations demand reflection, how power and proximity can obscure wrongdoing, how silence can amplify harm, and how accountability must extend to all, regardless of status. The Epstein files are more than a legal archive. They are a mirror held up to society's elite, a challenge to confront uncomfortable truths, and a call to ensure that no position of privilege can place one above justice. Consequences for Prince Andrew were swift and severe. In 2019, as public scrutiny intensified, he announced a withdrawal from all public duties, a move that was widely interpreted as both a protective and punitive measure. By 2022, the Queen had taken the extraordinary step of stripping him of his military affiliations, royal patronages, and the use of His Royal Highness, signaling a rare and unmistakable censure from the monarchy. Later that year, he reached a financial settlement with Virginia Giuffre, agreeing to compensation without admitting liability. Though he faced no criminal charges, he became a central figure in U.S. investigations into Epstein's trafficking network. His public appearances have since been rare, each absence magnifying speculation and highlighting the long shadow cast by his connections. Even casual are. References to his name in media cycles prompt renewed debate about accountability, privilege, and the intersection of royalty and scandal. Sarah Ferguson, the former Duchess of York, similarly endured sustained scrutiny. Introduced to Epstein through Prince Andrew, Ferguson developed her own complex relationship with him, encompassing both social and financial dimensions. In 2011, it emerged that Epstein had paid £15,000 to settle one of her personal debts, prompting a public apology in which she acknowledged a serious error of judgment. Subsequent revelations suggested that financial ties may have extended over several years, complicating the narrative of a single misstep. Leaked emails painted an even more nuanced picture. In one, Ferguson described Epstein as a steadfast, generous, and supreme friend, though she later clarified the message had been sent under legal pressure after he threatened defamation action. The fallout was immediate and lasting. Charities and philanthropic organizations severed long-standing ties with her, citing reputational concerns, while public speculation over her visits to Epstein's Florida residence with her daughters after his 2008 conviction kept her in the media spotlight. Her experience underscores how association, even without criminal behavior, can exact a profound social and professional cost. Bill Gates' encounters with Epstein have also drawn intense attention, framed as a cautionary tale of philanthropic misjudgment. Gates first met Epstein in 2011, reportedly exploring potential fundraising for global health initiatives. Despite extensive discussions, Epstein did not secure any funding for the Gates Foundation, and Gates has repeatedly described the interactions as a mistake. Flight logs indicate Gates traveled once on a plane linked to Epstein in 2013, though he denies ever visiting Epstein's private island. In interviews, he characterized the relationship as a dead end and acknowledged that his former wife, Melinda French Gates, had been deeply uncomfortable with the association. While Gates faces no allegations of criminal wrongdoing, the repeated surfacing of his name in connection with Epstein has inflicted ongoing reputational strain, illustrating how peripheral links to Epstein's network could reverberate across global power structures. Beyond royalty, philanthropy, and finance, the Epstein network ensnared a wide array of public figures, spanning celebrities, business leaders, and politicians. Flight logs, emails, and newly released investigative files reveal the breadth of social, financial, and intimate connections, some innocuous, some deeply troubling. Each disclosure underscores a pattern. Proximity to Epstein often meant exposure to ethically ambiguous or legally precarious situations. Even individuals who claim ignorance have faced scrutiny, as public perception weighs heavily on reputation, and the optics of association can be damaging regardless of intent. For survivors, these revelations are more than news cycles or reputational analysis. They are personal reckonings. Millions of pages of documents, tens of thousands of photographs, and meticulously maintained travel records offer a stark illustration of how Epstein's influence operated. Yet behind the data, there is a human story. Victims reclaiming voice, testifying to experiences once silenced, and forcing society to confront the complicity of networks built on power, privilege, and secrecy. Each public figure's withdrawal, apology, or settlement is a reminder that the fallout from Epstein's operations continues to ripple outward, reshaping institutions, alliances, and the understanding of accountability in circles previously thought untouchable. Bill Clinton's name has appeared repeatedly in flight logs documenting multiple trips aboard Jeffrey Epstein's private plane between 2002 and 2003. According to Clinton, these journeys were connected to philanthropic work, including missions for global health initiatives through his foundation, and he maintains that he severed ties with Epstein well before the latter's conviction. He has consistently denied ever visiting Epstein's private island, and no victim has accused him of misconduct, nor have any criminal charges been filed. Nevertheless, the political and reputational consequences have been persistent. Congressional subpoenas seeking testimony about his association with Epstein, coupled with intense media scrutiny, illustrate how even tangential connections to Epstein can linger in public memory, particularly for high-profile figures who occupy global platforms and influence. Each new document or flight log released in the ongoing investigations renews public discussion, reinforcing the perception that proximity to Epstein was rarely inconsequential. Larry Summers, former U.S. Treasury Secretary and Harvard University president, experienced a markedly different fallout. Emails released to the public revealed that Summers maintained communicati on with Epstein well after Epstein's 2008 conviction, with correspondence extending until July 2019, just weeks before Epstein's arrest. The content of some messages was highly personal, with Epstein offering advice on professional decisions and even romantic matters involving a mentee. Summers issued a public apology, calling the continued contact a serious lapse in judgment. Professional consequences followed swiftly. He resigned from multiple boards, including OpenAI, withdrew from public appearances, and faced a lifetime ban from the American Economic Association. Harvard launched an internal review to examine any conflicts of interest or reputational risks, signaling the breadth of institutional repercussions for entanglement with Epstein. While Summers faced no criminal allegations, his experience highlights how ethical miscalculations and personal associations can have career-altering consequences, demonstrating that legal culpability is only one facet of public accountability. Naomi Campbell, the world-renowned supermodel, also had early connections to Epstein dating back to the early 2000s. Flight logs indicate she traveled on his plane in 2002, and she has acknowledged social interactions with him. Campbell has consistently maintained that she was unaware of Epstein's crimes at the time and has denied ever visiting his private island. Yet the scrutiny has persisted, intensified by the media's examination of photographs, event attendance, and address book entries. While no criminal accusations have been made, the lingering attention underscores the precarious position of public figures whose social or professional networks intersected with Epstein, reflecting how public perception often amplifies reputational risks independent of legal culpability. More recently, Dr. Peter Attia, a physician and expert in longevity, faced intense professional backlash when his name appeared repeatedly in newly released Epstein-related documents. The correspondence revealed informal, and at times, inappropriate communications with Epstein years after the 2008 conviction. Attia has denied any criminal involvement, stating he never visited Epstein's island or attended illicit gatherings. Nevertheless, the consequences were immediate and significant. He stepped down from advisory roles, lost sponsorships, and saw partnerships dissolve as trust in his judgment faltered. His experience underscores a broader pattern. Associations with Epstein, even those that fall short of criminality, can rapidly erode professional credibility and public confidence. The royal sphere was not immune to the fallout. Prince Andrew, once regarded as a favored son of the late Queen, faced one of the most dramatic public reckonings. His long-standing association with Epstein and Maxwell, including visits to their residences in New York and Florida, placed him squarely in the crosshairs of public scrutiny. A photograph from 2010 showing Andrew walking in Central Park with Epstein, 2 years after Epstein's conviction, became a powerful symbol of the prince's enduring association. Allegations from Virginia Giuffre, who claimed she was trafficked to Andrew at age 17, intensified the controversy. His 2019 BBC interview, intended to clear his name, instead amplified criticism, with explanations such as his visit to a Pizza Express restaurant and claims about a medical condition being widely mocked and dissected in public discourse. Consequences were swift and severe. Andrew stepped back from public duties, and in 2022, the Queen removed his military affiliations, royal patronages, and the use of His Royal Highness. Later that year, he reached a financial settlement with Giuffre without admitting liability. While he was never criminally charged, he remains a figure of intense public and media scrutiny, illustrating the intersection of privilege, accountability, and public perception. Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, also attracted attention due to her connection to Epstein. Introduced through Prince Andrew, Ferguson developed her own relationship with Epstein. In 2011, it emerged that Epstein had paid £15,000 to settle one of her debts. She publicly apologized, describing it as a serious error of judgment. Subsequent disclosures suggested that financial interactions with Epstein may have extended over many years. Leaked emails revealed Ferguson referring to Epstein as a steadfast, generous, and supreme friend, though she later stated that the message had been sent under legal pressure after Epstein threatened defamation action. Charitable organizations distanced themselves from her, ending long-standing affiliations, and reports indicated she had visited Epstein's Florida residence with her daughters after his conviction, raising lingering questions about judgment and association. Bill Gates' involvement with Epstein has been characterized as a misjudged attempt at philanthropy. Meetings began in 2011 to discuss potential fundraising for global health initiatives. Gates has consistently stated that the meetings were a mistake, noting that Epstein ultimately did not secure funding for the Gates Foundation. Flight logs show that Gates traveled once on a plane linked to Epstein in 2013, though he denies visiting Epstein's private island. In interviews, Gates described the relationship as a dead end and expressed regret, noting that his former wife, Melinda French Gates, was deeply uncomfortable with the association. While Gates faces no criminal allegations, each release of Epstein-related documents renews public attention, demonstrating the persistent reputational consequences of even peripheral connections. Collectively, these examples illuminate a broader phenomenon. Epstein's social network spanned royalty, politicians, celebrities, philanthropists, and academics, leaving a trail of ethical, reputational, and legal repercussions that continue to reverberate. The release of millions of documents, emails, flight logs, photographs, and other materials reveals not only the mechanics of Epstein's abuse, but also the complex interplay of power, privilege, and proximity. Even in cases where no criminal activity occurred, association alone has triggered resignations, social ostracism, and enduring public scrutiny. The Epstein scandal serves as a stark reminder of how influence and proximity to wrongdoing can dramatically shape public perception, professional trajectories, and personal legacies. Across these cases, a clear and troubling pattern emerges. Association alone, even without criminal charges, can drastically reshape careers, reputations, and legacies. Some of the figures involved continue to deny any wrongdoing and maintain their public roles, navigating a landscape of skepticism and media scrutiny. Others have stepped back, voluntarily or under external pressure, their absence a tacit acknowledgement of the damage to public trust. The ongoing release of Epstein's files has kept this conversation alive, extending beyond individual accountability to examine the broader systems of influence that allowed proximity to power to obscure moral judgment. Every new document, emails, flight logs, photographs, or correspondence, reignites scrutiny, and every resurfaced name prompts renewed questions about the intersections of privilege, complicity, and oversight. Patterns of repeated association, questionable judgment, and institutional leniency highlight how social networks, wealth, and influence can shield behavior from immediate consequence, even as reputations are eroded. Yet the story remains far from complete. With millions of pages still being analyzed, additional records are certain to emerge, bringing new figures, new connections, and renewed debates about responsibility. The Epstein saga illustrates the enduring consequences of association with wrongdoing, revealing how deeply power and proximity can shape the legacies of even the most prominent public figures. In its wake, the questions of accountability, complicity, and ethical boundaries continue to resonate, leaving a long shadow that extends well beyond the original crimes.